the massive chamber filled with laughter. It echoed off the crystal walls and rang in the ears of every human present. Ambassador Tejo stood at the speaking platform, his face calm even as 47 different alien species watched him with contempt. Some were laughing. Others were making gestures that their translation devices turned into insults. A few simply stared with expressions that clearly said they thought humans were beneath their notice. The Galactic Council had been humanity's home for 300 years. 3 centuries of trying to fit in, trying to prove themselves worthy, trying to earn respect from species that had traveled the stars for thousands of years before humans even invented the wheel. Now, as Tejo prepared to announce humanity's withdrawal, the aliens acted like children who had just heard a funny joke. Chancellor Rixther raised his massive scaled hand. The Dravik leader was 3 times the size of any human, with skin that looked like liquid metal and eyes that glowed with an inner fire. His voice boomed across the chamber when he spoke, and his translation device made sure every species understood his words perfectly. "So the primitives finally admit they cannot keep up," Rixther said, his tone dripping with satisfaction. "Humanity withdraws because they have nothing to offer us. They are too weak, too slow, too stupid to contribute anything meaningful to our great civilization." More laughter followed. Tejo felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his expression neutral. Beside him sat Dr. Giwu, the lead scientist for all human space territories. Her hands were folded calmly in her lap, though Tejo could see the slight tension in her shoulders. Captain Hyenwu stood at attention behind them, his military uniform perfectly pressed, his face showing nothing despite the insults being hurled at his entire species. Commander Yunji sat at the end of their delegation, quietly recording everything on her data tablet. A Vorthax delegate leaned forward. The insect-like creature's mandibles clicked together in what Tejo had learned was their version of laughter. "Perhaps humans will return to playing with fire and stones," the alien said through its translator. "After all, your technology is barely functional compared to ours. You are like infants playing with toys while adults do real work," a Quentari representative. A floating blob of translucent flesh that looked like a jellyfish bobbed up and down in what their species considered amusement. 300 years in our company, and what has humanity given us? Nothing. No scientific breakthroughs. No technological innovations. No contributions worth remembering. You have been passengers on our ship, not partners in our journey." Tejo had heard enough. He activated his microphone and spoke clearly. "Humanity thanks the Galactic Council for allowing us to be members for the past 3 centuries. We are now exercising our legal right, as written in the Galactic Charter Section 7, to withdraw from active participation. All human colonies, space stations, and vessels will leave Council territory within 90 standard days." "Good riddance," muttered a Mathelian overseer named Shankra. The alien's 6 eyes blinked in sequence, which, in their culture, meant disgust. Several other delegates nodded their various heads, appendages, or energy fields in agreement. Chancellor Rixther leaned back in his enormous chair, looking pleased with himself. "Humanity is free to run back to their little corner of space. We will not miss having you here. In fact, the Council will probably work better without carrying the dead weight of a species that stopped evolving before they even left their planet." Tejo gathered his papers and prepared to leave. As he did, he allowed himself a small smile. It was subtle enough that most of the aliens missed it, but Dr. Giwu noticed. So did Captain Hyenwu and Commander Yunji. They all knew something the Council did not. The human delegation walked out of the chamber in silence. The corridors outside were lined with aliens from dozens of species, all watching the humans leave. Some looked at them with pity, as if watching children who had failed at school. Others looked triumphant, happy to see humanity brought low. A few looked curious, wondering what would happen next, but none of them looked worried. None of them suspected the truth. As they walked toward their shuttle, Tejo finally spoke. His voice was quiet, meant only for his fellow humans. Phase 1 is complete. They bought it completely. Dr. Jiwoo allowed herself a small smile. Of course they did. They have been so comfortable for so long, they cannot imagine anyone being smarter than them. They think we are retreating in shame. Let them think it, Captain Hyanwu said, his military bearing never breaking even as he spoke. In 90 days, we will be gone, and they will celebrate. They will divide up our old territories among themselves. They will congratulate each other on being rid of us. Commander Yunji looked up from her tablet. I recorded everything. Every insult, every dismissal, every moment of contempt. Our people will want to see this. They will want to remember how the council treated us before everything changed. Make sure everyone sees it. Every human in every colony, every station, every ship, they need to understand why we are doing this. They need to remember that we gave the council 300 years to treat us as equals. 300 years of trying to fit into their system. 300 years of playing by their rules. And now, Dr. Jiwoo asked, though she already knew the answer. Now we play by our own rules, Taeho said firmly. We go to places they cannot follow. We build things they say are impossible. We become what they never imagined we could be. The shuttle bay doors opened before them. Their vessel waited, sleek and functional, designed to look like typical human technology. 2 alien eyes, it appeared outdated and inefficient compared to council ships. They could not see the hidden systems underneath. The technology that humanity had kept secret for decades. The innovations that made council science look primitive by comparison. As they boarded, Taeho took one last look back at the council building. The massive structure towered above them, a symbol of galactic power and cooperation. For 300 years, humanity had walked those halls as beggars, hoping for scraps of knowledge and respect. Never again. The shuttle lifted off, heading toward the human fleet waiting in orbit. Behind them, the council continued with their regular business, already forgetting about the primitive species that had just left. They had no idea that humanity had not been failing for 300 years. Humanity had been studying, learning, preparing, waiting, and now. The waiting was over. 90 days from now. Every human would be gone from council space. Vanished completely, leaving no trace except empty buildings and unanswered questions. The council would wonder where they went. They would send scouts to look. They would find nothing, because humanity was not running away. Humanity was graduating, and the galaxy was about to learn a very important lesson. Never mistake patience for weakness. Observation for inability, or strategic retreat for defeat. The shuttle reached the flagship, and Taeho allowed himself a real smile for the first time in hours. Around them, thousands of human ships waited in perfect formation. Ships that looked outdated and slow to alien sensors. Ships that hid capabilities the council could not imagine. Send the signal, Taeho ordered. Begin the countdown. In 90 days, we show them what humanity really is. Across the fleet, the message spread. On every ship, in every station, in every colony, humans received the word. The exodus was beginning. The careful facade they had maintained for 3 centuries was about to drop, and when it did, the Galactic Council would finally understand their mistake. They would realize too late that the species they mocked was never weak. Humanity had simply been waiting for the right moment. That moment had finally arrived. 90 days passed in a blur of organized chaos. Millions of humans packed their belongings, closed down their homes, and prepared to leave the only life many of them had ever known. Children born in council space said goodbye to alien friends. Scientists carefully packed decades of research. Military personnel deactivated defense stations and weapons platforms. Merchants closed shops that had served both human and alien customers for generations. The council, monitoring stations, tracked it all with mild interest. They watched as human ships gathered in massive formations. Colonies were emptied systematically, as space stations were powered down and abandoned. To the aliens watching, it looked exactly like a defeated species retreating in shame. The humans were leaving in an orderly fashion, taking their possessions but leaving behind the infrastructure the council had helped them build. What the council did not know was that everything they saw was theater, a carefully planned performance, designed to make them believe exactly what they wanted to believe. Admiral, Sang-mi stood on the bridge of the flagship called Determination, watching as the last ships reported, ready for departure. The massive view screen showed thousands of vessels stretching out into space. More ships than most Council species had in their entire fleet. Every ship appeared to be a standard human design. Functional, but unimpressive by galactic standards. Beside her, Director Dongmin reviewed reports from the secret facilities, the hidden research stations. The classified projects that the Council had never discovered, despite 300 years of supposedly sharing everything. His tablet showed status updates from operations that had been running in the shadows since before most of these ships' crews were born. Assets accounted for? Sang-mi asked, her eyes never leaving the holographic display. Every ship, every person, every piece of equipment, Dongmin confirmed. We left behind exactly what we wanted them to find. Empty buildings, deactivated equipment, and our formal resignation letter. The Council surveillance teams are watching us leave, and they see exactly what we want them to see. Sang-mi nodded with satisfaction. Excellent. Are the Nexus gates ready? All 47 gates are operational and waiting, Dongmin replied. We can begin Phase 2 whenever you give the word. Sang-mi opened a communication channel to the entire fleet. Her face appeared on screens in every ship, from the smallest scout vessel to the largest colony transporter. Attention all fleet commanders. This is Admiral Sang-mi. Today marks the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. For 300 years, we played a role. We acted like grateful children, happy to receive whatever scraps of knowledge the Council was willing to share. We accepted their insults with smiles. We lost their war games on purpose. We pretended to struggle with technology we had already surpassed. On the scientific vessel called Breakthrough, Dr. Ji-woo addressed her research teams. Scientists from every human colony listened as she spoke. The Council mocked our mathematics, calling it primitive and limited. They did not realize we were solving equations they could not even understand. They dismissed our engineering as crude, never noticing that we had miniaturized their technology to 1/10 the size while improving its efficiency. They laughed at our biology research while we were mapping pathways through dimensions they refused to believe exist. Aboard the military vessel Vanguard, Captain Hyen-woo briefed his officers. Warriors who had spent years pretending to be mediocre, now prepared to show their true capabilities. For 3 centuries, we have maintained the illusion of military weakness. Our ships always appeared outdated. Our weapons seemed inferior. Our tactics looked predictable. We let them win every simulation, every war game, every tactical exercise. The Council thinks they know how humans fight. They know nothing about what we are truly capable of. Commander Yoonji spoke from the navigation vessel Pathfinder, her voice reaching every pilot in the fleet. I am sending you coordinates now. We are heading to the outer reaches, 2 regions the Council declared impossible to navigate. They based those declarations on their own limitations, not ours. We are going to places they cannot follow, places they would not even think to look. And there, we will build something amazing. Chief Engineer Boira worked from the construction ship called Forge, overseeing the transformation that was about to begin. All ships prepare to initiate protocol revelation. It is time to drop the disguises. Time to show what human engineering really looks like when we stop pretending to be less than we are. Across the fleet, things began to change. Panels on the ship's hulls slid open, revealing weapon systems that bore no resemblance to anything the Council had ever seen. Engines that had seemed bulky and inefficient suddenly hummed with power that made space itself ripple and distort. Defensive shields flickered into existence. Layered and adaptive in ways that Council technology could not achieve, the transformation took hours. When it was complete, the human fleet looked nothing like the collection of outdated vessels that had departed from Council space. These were warships, science vessels, and colony ships that incorporated technology from dozens of different sources. Improved and perfected by human innovation, researcher Jae-hoon watched from his laboratory aboard the Science. Vessel Discovery. The Council gave us their technology and expected us to use it exactly as they did. They never imagined we would take their designs, understand the underlying principles better than they did, and create something completely new. Their arrogance was our greatest weapon. They were so sure of their superiority that they never suspected we could surpass them. As the fleet approached the coordinates for the first Nexus Gate, Admiral Sangmi addressed her people one final time before the jump. Everything we have worked toward for generations comes down to this moment. Today, we stop pretending. Today, we stop hiding what we are capable of. Today, humanity shows the galaxy what 300 years of silent preparation has achieved. All ships set course for the outer reaches. Let us go build the empire we deserve. The first ships reached the Nexus Gate, and something remarkable happened. Space itself seemed to open up, revealing a pathway that should not exist according to Council physics. The gate was not like the crude jump points the Council used, which were slow and required massive amounts of energy. This was instantaneous, efficient, and completely invisible to Council sensors. Human scientists had discovered the principles. Decades ago, while researching what the Council called impossible theories, the Council had dismissed dimensional pathway mathematics as fantasy, saying their equations proved it could not work. Human mathematicians had looked at the same problem from a different angle and found that it could work perfectly. The Council had been asking the wrong questions. Ships began pouring through the Nexus Gates, disappearing from normal space and reappearing light years away in seconds. The journey that would have taken weeks using Council jump technology took minutes. Within hours, the entire fleet had vanished from Council sensors, leaving behind only empty space and confused monitoring stations. The Council observers watching the exodus saw the human ships reach the edge of their territory and then simply disappear. No jump signatures, no warp trails, no energy readings that would indicate where they had gone. One moment, millions of humans and thousands of ships were there. The next moment, they were gone. In the Council monitoring station nearest to human space, a Cronin technician stared at his sensors in confusion. "Did we lose tracking?" he asked his superior. "Run a full diagnostic," the superior ordered. "They have to be somewhere. Ships that size cannot just vanish." But the diagnostics showed nothing wrong with the sensors. The human fleet had simply ceased to exist as far as Council technology could detect. They had not jumped to any known system. They had not used any recognized form of faster-than-light travel. They had just disappeared. The technician filed his report, noting that the humans had departed Council space as agreed. The destination was unknown, but that was not the Council's concern anymore. The primitives were gone, and good riddance. Meanwhile, in the outer reaches, the human fleet emerged from the Nexus Gates into regions of space that the Council had declared uninhabitable. Regions where radiation levels were supposed to be too high for life, where gravity wells were supposed to make navigation impossible, where resources were supposed to be inaccessible. The Council was wrong on all counts. Admiral Sangmi looked at the readings coming in from the scout ships. Rich deposits of rare elements, habitable planets that needed minimal terraforming, areas of space perfect for building the infrastructure humanity would need, and best of all, complete isolation from Council surveillance and interference. "Begin colonization procedures," she ordered. "We have work to do." Across the fleet, humans got to work. They were finally free to be everything they had always been capable of becoming. No more hiding. No more pretending. No more playing weak to satisfy alien egos. The Council thought they had seen the last of humanity. They were wrong. They would see humanity again. But when that meeting came, it would be on humanity's terms, not theirs. 6 months passed after humanity's departure. The Galactic Council initially celebrated their exit like a victory. The species that had always struggled, always needed help, always slowed down progress, was finally gone. Council members divided up the former human territories among themselves, claiming the space stations and colony worlds that humans had left behind. Chancellor Richter gave speeches about how the Council would be stronger without dead weight holding them back. Other species agreed publicly, though some privately wondered why it felt like something important had been lost. Then the strangeness began. Trade. Minister Colvin was the first to notice something wrong. The historian had built his career on understanding galactic economics, tracking every trade route and resource flow across Council space. He noticed that certain materials were becoming harder to find. Prices were rising on things that should have been readily available. Neutronium alloys, which were used in advanced ship construction, suddenly became scarce. Quantum crystals, essential for faster-than-light communication, tripled in price. Dark matter catalysts, needed for power generation, were nearly impossible to acquire at any cost. Colvin spent weeks analyzing the data, trying to understand what was happening. Humans had never been major suppliers of these materials. They had no significant mining operations in resource-rich sectors, or so everyone had believed. Yet somehow, their absence had created shortages that made no sense. "This is impossible," Colvin reported to the council. "Humans controlled barely 5% of our resource markets. Their departure should have caused minor disruptions at most. Instead, we are seeing shortages across multiple critical materials. The numbers do not add up." Science Director Prialthus, a Centauri known for her analytical mind, decided to investigate further. She started reviewing Council's scientific publications from the past century, looking for patterns. What she found disturbed her deeply. 17 major breakthroughs in various fields had occurred over the past 100 years. Advances in propulsion systems, energy generation, medical technology, and materials science. All of them had human consultants listed in the research teams. Always listed as minor contributors. Always assigned to basic tasks. Never credited as lead researchers, Prialthus decided to dig deeper. She accessed the full research notes for each project, reading through thousands of pages of technical data. What she discovered made her blood run cold. In every single case, the revolutionary insight that made the breakthrough possible had come from the human team members. The supposedly primitive species that everyone dismissed had been solving the Council's most difficult problems and letting the Council take credit. She brought her findings to the Council chamber. "We have been fools," she announced, her voice shaking with anger at herself as much as anyone else. "For decades, we assigned humans to menial tasks on our most important projects. We thought we were being generous, giving them a chance to learn from superior minds. But they were not learning from us. They were teaching us. Every major advancement we have made in the past century came from human insights that we claimed as our own." Chancellor Richter dismissed her concerns with a wave of his massive hand. "Coincidence? Or perhaps humans were slightly more competent than we gave them credit for. It changes nothing. They are gone. They are not coming back, and we will continue to advance without them." But the questions kept coming. Intelligence Officer Daxarel, a Cronin with extensive cybernetic enhancements, presented classified findings to the Council's inner circle. "We sent reconnaissance drones into former human space 3 months ago. Standard procedure for monitoring departed species. The drones should have returned within weeks with survey data. It has been 8 months. Not a single drone has reported back. Equipment failure." Someone suggested, "All of them? Simultaneously?" Daxarel shook his head. "We sent 97 drones. State-of-the-art surveillance equipment. They were designed to be undetectable and nearly indestructible. All 97 have vanished without a trace. No debris fields, no distress signals, no sensor echoes. They simply ceased to exist." Chancellor Richter's confidence wavered slightly. "Send manned vessels, then. I want to know what those primitives are doing in their isolation. Send a full military escort. If they are doing something that requires hiding our drones, I want to know what it is." The expeditionary fleet left Council space 2 weeks later. 12 warships representing 6 different species, each vessel equipped with the best sensors and weapons the Council could provide. Captain Thescora commanded the mission from the flagship Dominance. Confident that her experienced crew would quickly solve the mystery of the missing drones, they entered what had been human space and found emptiness. The colonies were abandoned, left intact but completely vacant. Space stations hung in the void, powered down but showing no signs of damage or struggle. Mining facilities sat silent, their equipment neatly stored, as if the workers had simply decided to take a break and never return. Captain Thescora sent increasingly confused reports back to Council space. There is no indication of where they went. The evacuation was clearly organized and methodical, but there are no jump signatures, no warp trails, no evidence of departure vectors. Millions of people and thousands of ships simply vanished without leaving any trace we can detect. The fleet searched for weeks, checking every station, every colony, every facility that humans had operated. They found the same thing everywhere. Empty buildings, deactivated equipment, no answers. Then they reached Threshold Station, humanity's former gateway facility, at the edge of their territory. The massive structure was the last major human installation before empty space. The fleet approached cautiously, scanning for any signs of activity. The station was powered down but intact. Captain Thescora ordered boarding teams to investigate. They found the station completely abandoned, just like everything else. But in the main control room, they found something that made every member of the Council expedition feel a chill, despite the heated environment suits they wore. A message displayed on every screen throughout the station, written in 47 different languages, one for each Council species. The translation was perfect, showing intimate knowledge of how each species communicated. The message was simple, polite, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. To the Galactic Council, thank you for 300 years of education. We have learned much, though not from your lessons. We learned from your mistakes. We observed how you stagnated, how your 1,000-year-old empire stopped innovating, how you became comfortable with your superiority and ceased striving for advancement. We saw civilizations that had peaked and did not even realize it. You called us primitive. You were correct in a way. We were primitive enough to still have something you lost long ago. Hunger, the desire to improve. To question, to never accept that we have reached our limits. You've satisfied yourselves with being better than others. We push ourselves to be better than we were yesterday. You mocked our departure. That is understandable. From your perspective, we were weak creatures fleeing a game we could not win. But we were not fleeing. We were graduating. You were a school, not a home. We learned what you had to teach, and now we move on to challenges you cannot imagine. Do not look for us. You will not find us. Your sensors cannot track where we have gone. Your ships cannot follow where we are going. We are traveling to places your physics say are impossible, building things your engineers say cannot exist, and becoming something your philosophers say should not be. When we meet again, and we will meet again, we hope you have remembered how to dream. We hope you have rediscovered the hunger for advancement that built your civilizations in the first place. Until then, enjoy your stagnation. Enjoy your comfortable superiority. Enjoy the illusion that you are still the pinnacle of galactic achievement. We will be building the future. You are welcome to join us when you are ready. Sincerely, humanity. The message was signed by Ambassador Tejo, but it bore the official seals of the entire human leadership. Every major human organization had endorsed these words. This was not the statement of a few rebels or malcontents. This was the official position of the entire human species. Captain Thescora stood in the empty control room, reading and rereading the message. Her crew members stood silently around her, processing the implications. One of her officers finally spoke, his voice uncertain. "Captain, what do we do?" Thescora had no answer. She transmitted the message back to Council space and ordered the fleet to return. There was nothing more to learn here. The humans were gone, and they had made it clear they had no intention of being found. When the expeditionary fleet returned, and the Council members read the message, the chamber fell into unusual silence. For the first time in centuries, the confident, superior Council leadership looked uncertain. Humans had not retreated in defeat. They had declared independence and demonstrated capabilities the Council did not understand. They had vanished using technology that should not exist. They had left behind a message that was simultaneously respectful and dismissive. And worst of all, they had done it all with a confidence that suggested they knew exactly what they were doing. The galaxy had changed. The Council just did not realize how much yet. 2 years after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council faced a crisis they could no longer ignore. The Velkari had come. The Velkari were a savage species from beyond Council borders. Raiders who had tested Council defenses for centuries. They were brutal, aggressive, and relentless. But they had always been technologically inferior, making their attacks more of an irritation than a true threat. Council fleets had always been able to push them back with minimal losses. This time was different. The Valkyrie, invasion force that struck at the Tharsis Expanse, was enormous. But that was not what shocked the Council defenders. What shocked them was the technology. Valkyrie ships moved with precision that matched Council vessels. Their weapons cut through defensive shields, as if they were not there. Their tactics suggested they knew exactly how Council forces would respond to every situation. Fleet Admiral Kroshvan, a veteran Dravik commander with 200 years of military experience, led the Council defense. He commanded a fleet of 300 warships, representing the combined might of a dozen Council species. He had never lost a major engagement in his entire career. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, Kroshvan retreated with barely 70 ships remaining, 230 vessels destroyed or disabled, thousands of crew members dead. The Valkyrie had won a crushing victory and pushed deep into Council's space. Kroshvan's report to the Council was grim. They knew everything. Every formation we use, every tactical doctrine, every weakness in our ship designs. They did not fight like Valkyrie. They fought like someone who had studied us for years and prepared specifically to counter everything we could do. And their technology has somehow advanced by centuries in just 2 years. Security Chief Von Rees, a paranoid but brilliant Cronin, made the connection that everyone else was afraid to voice. There is only one species that had access to all our military data. One species that observed all our tactics, participated in all our war games, and studied every aspect of our defensive strategies. One species that mysteriously vanished 2 years ago. The Council chamber fell silent. Chancellor Richther's scales rippled with anger, but his voice trembled slightly when he spoke. You are suggesting that humanity armed our enemies? That they betrayed the peace? I am suggesting that humanity spent 300 years learning everything about us, and then sold that information to the highest bidder. Van Rees replied coldly. The timing is too perfect to be coincidence. The Valkyrie acquired advanced technology and detailed tactical data at exactly the same time humanity disappears. We assumed humans were weak because they lost every war game we ran. What if they were losing on purpose? What if 300 years was just an intelligence-gathering operation? Director Prialthus added more evidence. I have been analyzing our economic data since the shortages began. The pattern is clear now. Every critical resource that has become scarce since humanity left was something they had operations extracting. We thought those operations were minor, barely worth noticing. Now I believe they were using shell corporations and proxy operations to hide the true scale of their involvement. They controlled larger portions of our economy than entire Council species, and we never noticed because we were too busy dismissing them as primitive. Trade Minister Colvin nodded in agreement. Our entire economic model was built on assumptions about resource availability that turned out to be false. Humanity was not a minor player. They were a major supplier who deliberately appeared insignificant. When they left, they took their resources with them and left us scrambling to fill gaps we did not know existed. The Council chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted accusations at each other, demanding to know how the intelligence services had failed to detect such massive deception. How could one species, considered primitive by everyone, fool the entire galactic community for 3 centuries? In the midst of the pandemonium, a communication alert sounded. The chamber's main screen flickered to life, showing an incoming transmission on an old human diplomatic frequency that should have been inactive. The Council fell silent, staring at the screen. Admiral Sang-Mi appeared on the display. She wore a uniform that looked nothing like the outdated Terran Defense Force attire the Council remembered. It was sleek, modern, and somehow threatening, despite being just clothing. Behind her, through massive viewports, a fleet of human vessels could be seen. The ships were unlike anything the Council had encountered. Elegant, powerful, and clearly built with technology far beyond what humans should possess. Greetings, Galactic Council, Sang-Mi said, her tone professional, but with an edge of steel underneath. "We have been monitoring your difficulties with the Valkyrie. It seems you are having some trouble. We thought we would reach out with a proposition." Chancellor Rixther found his voice, though rage made it shake. "You armed our enemies. You gave them our secrets. You betrayed 300 years of peace." Sang-Mi's expression did not change. "Betrayed? No, Chancellor. We simply ensured the playing field was level. For 3 centuries, the Council sold weapons to everyone except us. You traded technology with our competitors. You systematically ensured humanity remained dependent on Council goodwill for our survival. We just evened things out a bit. The Valkyrie acquired their technology through the same open markets you have always championed. It is not our fault they were better customers than you were suppliers." "What do you want?" Director Prialthus asked, cutting through the anger and posturing. "You did not contact us just to gloat about our problems." Perceptive as always, Director Sang-Mi replied with what might have been respect. "You are correct. We are offering a deal. The Valkyrie are advancing into Council space across 12 sectors. Our analysis suggests they will reach the core worlds within 8 months at their current pace. You will lose this war. Your technology is outdated, your tactics are predictable, and your leadership is too arrogant to adapt quickly enough. But humanity has certain capabilities that could shift the balance in your favor. You are mercenaries now." Spat Overseer Shankra, her multiple eyes blinking in rapid sequence. "How far you have fallen from the species that claim to value honor and cooperation." Director Dongmin appeared beside Sang-Mi on the screen. "Not mercenaries. Overseer, partners. We will help you survive the Valkyrie invasion, but not as subordinates begging for permission to exist. We come as equals. Our terms are simple: full technology exchange with no restrictions. Equal representation in all Council decisions, and removal of all the safety limitations you placed on human development." "You are blackmailing us during a crisis," Chancellor Rixther growled, his scales darkening with fury. "You are extorting concessions while our people die." "We are negotiating," Sang-Mi corrected calmly. "You chose to treat us as inferiors for 3 centuries. You chose to limit our access to technology that could have saved lives. You chose to dismiss our contributions and mock our efforts. Now you face the consequences of those choices. We are offering you a chance to correct your mistakes and survive. Or you can maintain your pride and face the Valkyrie alone." "And if we refuse?" Rixther demanded. "Then we return to our ventures in the outer reaches," Sang-Mi replied simply. "The Valkyrie will be your problem to solve. We have no particular interest in seeing the Council destroyed, but we have no obligation to save you either. Especially not after 300 years of insults and condescension." Sang-Mi leaned forward slightly, her eyes hard. "You have 6 hours to decide. Agree to our terms, and we will deploy our forces to assist you. Refuse, and you will never hear from us again. Choose wisely, Chancellor. This is the only offer you will receive." The transmission ended, leaving the Council in stunned silence. For several minutes, no one spoke. The most powerful beings in the galaxy sat frozen. Processing the reality that had just been presented to them, they could maintain their pride and likely lose everything. Or they could swallow their arrogance and accept help from the species they had spent centuries mocking. Chancellor Rixther looked around the chamber at the representatives of 47 species. He saw fear, anger, and reluctant acceptance in various combinations. "We will vote," he said finally, his voice heavy with defeat. "But I think we all know how this must end." The Council chose survival. They always would. But the price of that survival was admitting that everything they believed about humanity had been wrong. The treaty negotiations took 3 weeks. Every day felt like a humiliation for the Council representatives who had spent centuries treating humanity as inferior. Now they sat across the table from human negotiators who drove hard bargains and refused to back down on any point. Ambassador Tejo led the human delegation with quiet confidence. Beside him sat Admiral Sung-Mi, Director Dongmin, and a dozen other human leaders. They were polite, professional, and absolutely ruthless in their demands. They knew the Council was desperate. They used that desperation to reshape the entire Galactic power structure. The final agreement gave humanity everything they wanted. Full access to previously restricted technology and sectors, equal voting rights in all council matters. Most importantly, removal of all limitations on human development and research. The council agreed to everything because the alternative was extinction. When the human fleet arrived at the Battle of Corinth, the council forces finally saw what humanity had become. The ships were smaller than council dreadnoughts, but moved with frightening agility. They accelerated and turned in ways that should have torn them apart, yet they remained perfectly stable. Their weapons fired in patterns that seemed to bend physics itself, and their defensive systems made them nearly impossible to target effectively. Commander Yunji led the human tactical division from the Pathfinder. Her fleet moved like a single organism, each ship perfectly coordinated with the others. The Valkyrie had been confident after their early victories against Council forces. They had defeated superior numbers through better technology and tactics, but they had never fought. Humans before, human ships appeared from angles the Valkyrie could not predict. They struck with devastating precision and vanished before retaliation could be organized. They used dimensional technology that let them slip in and out of normal space, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. The Valkyrie found themselves fighting an enemy that was always where they did not expect and never where they aimed. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the Valkyrie invasion force had been shattered. Survivors fled back toward their own space, abandoning their occupied territories in panic. The Council forces had barely participated, watching in awe as humanity demonstrated military capabilities that made their own fleets look like antiques. On the ground, Captain Hyenwu commanded human forces that deployed using technology the Council had never seen. Personal shields that could stop energy weapons and physical projectiles. Powered armor that enhanced strength and speed to superhuman levels. Weapons that could adapt their properties in real time. Based on enemy defenses, Council troops had struggled for weeks to retake planets the Valkyrie had occupied. Human Marines accomplished the same task in days. They moved through enemy defenses like they were not there. Using tactics and equipment that made conventional warfare obsolete, Dr. Ji Woo established field hospitals that employed medical techniques decades ahead of Council standards. Wounded Council soldiers, expecting to die from injuries their own doctors could not treat, found themselves saved by human physicians using methods that seemed miraculous. Regeneration chambers that could regrow lost limbs. Neural repair systems that could fix brain damage. Disease protocols that worked across multiple species despite completely different biology. The Council had believed they were the pinnacle of medical science. Human doctors made them look like primitives using leeches. The turning point of the entire war came at the siege of Viridian Prime. The Valkyrie had concentrated their remaining forces for a final push toward the Council's core systems. If they broke through here, nothing would stop them from reaching the heart of Council space. Human forces deployed a weapon system that the Council had no frame of reference for. They called it the Dimensional Disruptor. It did not destroy enemy ships with explosions or energy beams. Instead, it shifted them into parallel dimensional space, where they simply ceased to exist in normal reality. Valkyrie warships vanished by the dozens, not destroyed, but removed from existence entirely. Their crews did not die. They did not even know what had happened. One moment they were fighting, the next they were somewhere else. Somewhere the laws of physics worked differently. Somewhere they could never return from. Chief Engineer Biora explained the technology to horrified and fascinated Council observers. We discovered dimensional manipulation 40 years ago, while researching theoretical physics you dismissed as impossible. Your mathematics said it could not work. Our mathematics said it could. We were just asking the wrong questions. So we asked better questions and found better answers. The Valkyrie invasion collapsed completely within 2 months of human intervention. The survivors retreated beyond Council borders. And intelligence reports suggested they were abandoning their occupied territories in other sectors as well. Word had spread quickly that humans had entered the war. No one wanted to face the species that could make entire fleets disappear in the aftermath. The Galactic Council reconvened with a very different atmosphere than 2 years earlier. Humanity no longer sat in the minor delegates section at the back of the chamber. They occupied seats at the primary table, equal partners with the species that had once dismissed them as primitive. Ambassador Teho returned to chambers he had departed in disgrace, now walking through doors that opened for an equal. The aliens who had mocked humanity's exit now watched him with respect. And more than a little fear, Chancellor Rixther addressed the assembled representatives. His pride was broken, but his survival instinct remained intact. The Council recognizes that our understanding of humanity was incomplete. We propose a new framework for galactic cooperation, one that acknowledges the contributions of all member species without prejudice or predetermined hierarchy. It was a politician's way of admitting they had been catastrophically wrong without actually saying those words. Teho accepted it gracefully, because forcing them to grovel would serve no purpose. Humanity accepts the Council's proposal with modifications, Teho said, rising to speak. We suggest implementing a rotating leadership system, so no single species dominates policy. We propose mandatory technology sharing across all fields to prevent stagnation. And we recommend establishing joint research initiatives that pool our collective knowledge instead of hoarding it behind walls of secrecy and superiority. Trade Minister Colvin, who had privately supported the human proposals throughout the negotiations, added his voice. The economic data supports this approach. Species that collaborate openly show consistently higher development rates than those that hoard knowledge. If we want to advance as a galactic civilization, we need to stop treating innovation as a competition to win and start treating it as a resource to share. Over the following months, the transformation was remarkable. Human scientists like Dr. Ji Wu began publishing research that revolutionized multiple fields. Problems the Council had struggled with for centuries suddenly had solutions that seemed obvious once humans explained them. It was not that humans were necessarily smarter. They just approached problems from different angles and were not afraid to question assumptions. Researcher Jaehoon presented solutions to energy distribution problems that had limited Council expansion for generations. His work built on Council research, but took it in directions the original scientists had never considered. When asked how he had made the breakthrough, his answer was simple. I assumed the problem was solvable and worked backwards from there. You assumed it was impossible and stopped looking for answers. Director Dongmin opened access to human exploration data from the outer reaches. The Council learned about resource regions and habitable worlds they had never imagined existed. Planets they had declared uninhabitable, based on old survey data, turned out to be perfect for colonization once humans showed them. The proper techniques, the military partnership evolved as well. Captain Hoi Anwu established joint training programs where human and Council forces learned from each other. Humans taught adaptive tactics and improvisation while learning advanced strategic coordination from species with millennia of military history. Both sides became stronger through cooperation. Admiral D. Sangmi was appointed to the newly created position of Joint Fleet Commander. She oversaw a combined military force that answered to the entire Council rather than individual species interests. Her first major initiative was the Rapid Response Fleet, a mixed-species force capable of deploying anywhere in Council space within hours. But perhaps the most significant change was cultural. Commander Yunji's navigation corps opened the outer reaches to exploration by all species. Worlds humanity had found and prepared for colonization became joint settlements where multiple species worked together. Children of different species grew up side by side, learning from each other's cultures and perspectives. Chief Engineer Biora established the Collaborative Engineering Institute, bringing together the brightest minds from across the galaxy. The first graduating class included humans, Dravik, Luminari, Warthax, and a dozen other species. They were trained in an integrated approach that combined the best thinking from every culture, creating solutions no single species could have developed alone. The Council that had mocked humanity's exit 3 years earlier was unrecognizable. The rigid hierarchy had given way to fluid cooperation. Species that had stagnated for centuries found themselves innovating again, pushed by human curiosity and enabled by the free exchange of ideas in a private moment. Chancellor Rixther approached Teho in one of the Council's meditation gardens. The massive Dravik looked older, worn down by recent events and the weight of his mistakes. "Did you plan all of this from the beginning?" Richter asked quietly. "The Exodus, the Valkyrie crisis, our desperation, everything." Tejo considered the question carefully. "We planned to leave when we were ready, yes. We knew staying in the Council, as perpetual inferiors, would only breed resentment and stagnation. The Valkyrie timing was fortunate coincidence, though we would have found another way to demonstrate our value eventually. But the goal was never revenge, Chancellor. It was freedom. Freedom to develop without artificial restrictions. To prove ourselves without constant condescension. To build something new without needing permission. You could have conquered us," Richter said, his voice heavy with the weight of that realization. "Your technology, your military capabilities, your economic power. You could have dominated the Council entirely. To what end?" Tejo replied. "Humanity spent thousands of years conquering each other on Earth. We learned that victory through domination is temporary and hollow. We would rather build partnerships that last than empires that crumble. Besides, having you all as allies is far more useful than having you as subjects. Cooperation produces better results than subjugation." Richter nodded slowly. "We were fools to dismiss you. Arrogant fools who let pride blind us to reality." "You were comfortable," Tejo corrected gently. "Successful species often stop pushing themselves. You had achieved so much that you forgot how to achieve more. You did not need enemies. You needed rivals who would make you competitive again, who would remind you that standing still is the same as falling behind. Humanity is happy to fill that role." 5 years after humanity's dramatic exit, the Galactic Council had transformed into something none of its members would have recognized. It was stronger, more innovative, more dynamic, and importantly, more humble. The species that had mocked humanity's departure now told their children stories about the importance of never underestimating those who seem weak, never stopping the pursuit of knowledge, and never forgetting that yesterday's primitive can become tomorrow's pioneer, and in the outer reaches. Human colonies thrived on worlds the Council had declared uninhabitable. They used technologies other species had deemed impossible. They proved every single day that the greatest limitation any civilization faces is not what they cannot do, but what they refuse to try.